It's just a quick little thing right in the beginning, and then we'll just jump in.
Hey.
Welcome back to All That Jam, where music has no limits. I'm joined today by Billy and Vince from Loom to talk a little bit about Salt Lake City's jam scene and everything going on out there. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Yeah.
Yeah, doing real well. Yeah, we're excited. Thank you for having us on.
Thanks so much.
Yes. You don't hear Salt Lake City much for Jam Bam Mecca, more like Denver or something like that. How did you guys start out? Did it start out in Salt Lake City, or is it something that just coalesced there?
It all kind of came together here by way of a friend from New York who was living out here for several years. He worked in the film industry, had a passion for drums, and started a little project with Vince that was called the Dry Ice Factory. They would do a bunch of Dead tunes and Fish tunes and Talking Head songs and stuff like that. And those guys were getting together, and Carlos Bible is the gentleman's name, and he was actually our first drummer in Loom. And I was at a mutual friend's wedding, Sergia, and he got married, and Carlos was like, hey, I have this project going on, and, we need a guy. So, why don't you come out and check out Salt Lake City and, try out these
guy.
Yeah, try out these shows and, just, see what you think. And at the time, I needed a bit of change at my life. In my life, I was just getting off of working on yachts and working like crazy and traveling all over. And my mom was, in the midst of battling cancer and everything. So my life was like, I just needed music again a lot, more than what I was doing at that time. And so I flew out, needed a change of scenery, and just fell in love with it out here, and then connected with Vince. And we met at a fish show, actually. We met at MSG.
Yeah, it was similar, not in detail, but circumstances in my life. I'm actually an attorney barred in Colorado, and the cannabis licensing consulting firm that I was working for was really slowing down work-wise. I got furloughed some months prior to starting Dry Ice Factory, and then got fully laid off. And it was this time of, well, let's play music. Let's play music a lot.
Yeah.
And so I was hanging out with Carlos, going over to his house and playing a lot. And we, played this show at this brewery as Dry Ice Factory, and it didn't go entirely terribly. And so we're like, okay, maybe we can do this again. But we did really need a real ripper, a real, an ace in the hole, so to speak.
Yeah.
And Carlos had come back from a trip to New York from that wedding, Sergio's wedding, and he was, all animated and excited as Carlos is. And he was like, Vince, I got the guy. I got our guy. Like, I got him. And, me just being myself too, I'm like, yeah, I'm excited. Like, in the back of my head, I'm like, who is this dude? Like, I don't even know. And the first night when, we met, I think it was after a fish show at bar 619 in Brooklyn or lower Manhattan. And Billy was wearing these sunglasses. And for like the first 3-4 hours of us hanging out, I couldn't see his eyes. I just couldn't see his eyes. And I was like, I don't trust this guy. Like, I was like, I can't tell what he's thinking. And Billy was more being respectful of like the intense like friend group that he was being introduced to. So he was just kind of hanging in the back and stuff. We ended up going back to my parents' apartment on the Upper East Side and playing music together. And Billy pulls out, he's like, oh, I got this kind of cool arrangement of Eleanor Rigby I do, like on the solo acoustic. And he started playing it, and 2 seconds later, I was like, yeah, Carlos, this is the guy. And then
Beatles songs, everyone.
Yeah. And then Billy, Billy really did I think Billy flew one-way ticket out to Salt Lake with like one suitcase of clothes and slept on this couch right over here for a long time, and really whipped us into shape. Billy had been playing for much longer than the rest of the guys who initially started Loom, and just brought a higher standard to our rehearsal approach, everything.
Respectable jobs and careers. And I was very much musician for a very, very long, well, nearly all my life, except for little stints of this and that here and there to make ends meet and pay bills and venture into, growing up. They're like,
well, you've had quite a few. You've had quite a few accolades over your career. I mean,
Yeah.
before you in Loom, you have a pretty good pedigree there.
Yeah.
Coming in.
This is the guy.
Yeah.
He's the guy.
I think probably anyone listening to this that's playing music and doing it, and even if you're not, you kind of know that the starving artist and the struggling musician is the thing, and you have to work really hard to make it not that. And it's very much like a sales career, right? You have to call people and send out press releases and knock on doors, and you have to convince people to pay money for an intangible object, where if you go door to door and you sell knives, at least someone's being like, oh, thanks for the knives. So it's a lot of work, and it can kind of get to you, and then the bills come in, and you got to pay credit cards and whatever and make stuff happen. So that's kind of where I was, and I was running a restaurant for like 3 years, and killing myself.
God,
doing
that's
that.
horrible. God bless you.
It was a lot. Learned a lot. It was great. There was a lot of stuff I liked about it, and then that got over, and then I ventured into a completely different career path of traveling and doing something where I could learn something new every day and travel and meet people, which is a great part of music. So anyway, it's great just to be back in this and doing this with Vince and having Loom kind of blossom into what it's becoming, and us working hard and doing all those things.
How did we get the keyboard player in?
So this is actually, I was going to actually follow up with kind of how the band took shape. So originally Dry Ice Factory, 5-piece with Billy lead guitar. I was on rhythm guitar. Had this bass player Val. Our initial keyboard is Tyler, who's a good friend of mine, and then Carlos on the drums. And Val, we had to part ways with Val, and then one night we were getting together to jam, and it was like, well, who's going to play the bass? And I was like, well, that is my bass sitting over there in the corner that I own. Yeah. And picked it up. And then that jam, everyone was like, that was sick. Like that. We got to do this. You're on the bass now, Vince. And I was like, all right, time to unlearn everything that I was trying to learn on guitar. And then Tyler, we asked to leave the band about like 6 to 8 months ago. I forget when exactly, but or no, it was about 6-ish, 7 months ago. He is now, his wife is pregnant. He has a wife. They had just bought a house. He has a very strenuous job, and we were trying to find someone who was really willing to like go in on the band thing and be able to give as much as we wanted. And so we played this show up at Snowbird last Labor Day weekend.
I saw the interview. I saw the Freedom 90 cover you did. Yes.
Hey, thanks for
you interviewed some woman from a radio station interview. My prep, I found that.
Yeah. Lainey Hansen at the University of Utah. Yeah, she's great. But so we played that show with this guy that we had met through the scene here, Will Sangster is his name. And that show with Will, we thought was really great, and that's why we put that whole live set out on the streaming platforms. And then it was like, well, we think it's makes the most sense to do this move as early as possible and start building the sort of cohesion with Will on the keyboards. And so asked Will to join the band, and then our current drummer, so Carlos, for a number of reasons, had to move back home to New York, and just also
difficult to practice in St. Louis in Salt Lake City, huh?
and also had life circumstances I think just made it difficult for him to give as much to the band as it requires, because it is so much. It's like this is way harder than being a lawyer for everybody who's out there. If you ever hear someone who's a lawyer and you're like, oh, that's cool, it's like, tell your musicians they're cool, because it's way harder.
Yeah, I think kind of just where we're at and what the band has become, and definitely with my intentions. When I got out here, everyone there, guys were like, should we play this venue? And I was like, we're not playing there. And it's not this whole thing of being elitist or thinking you're better or whatever. It's just that for a very, very long time, I've played in bands and played in bars, and I still do, and not knocking that. But I think for what I wanted the band to become, for the amount of work that I knew that it would take for, first of all, for us to be better musicians and upper musicality and practice and rehearse and get together and just jam and, you know, write and bookings and travel, that we
present a show, like give people an experience, you know,
produce and present a show and give people a reason to come out and just kind of do the thing they want to do. And that is experience that level of connection and improvisation with themselves, with the audience, with the music, and have that feedback loop and just kind of the whole thing that's like getting us off up there and having a wonderful time and sharing those experiences with people, and, you know, getting lights better and getting better gear and just kind of, you know, striving for more. So that's kind of where we're at. And I think it kind of just, you know, made its way in to defining what it is that it takes for people, for the individual, for the musician to continue to do what it is. I mean, the bar is very high out there for how people are playing and how they're touring, and the amount of work it takes even just to, you know, we started our own business. We're an LLC now. We're, you know, learning so many things just about the ins and outs of
Paperwork,
taxes and paperwork and taxes, and
sort of being a lawyer helps.
Organization.
Yeah. You know, this reminds me a lot of Houseplant. Do you know them out of North Carolina?
So I actually know them through a friend of mine in the fish scene, Tommy Whitaker. Shout out Major Tom. He connected me with Tavis long ago, and we really should hit them up. Actually, that's me dropping the ball because I got his contact long ago. But yeah, Houseplant, great too.
They have a similar story. 3/5 of the band, wives, kids, were not leaving home. Tavis and the bass player brought in a new guitarist, a new keyboard player, and they got Ben from Goose to come in on drums. Now they can go back. I've interviewed them a few times, and the first interview we had, they were like, "Nah, we're never going to really tour because we all have families. We aren't doing that." And you could see that a small part of the band who wrote all the songs, Tavis and the bass player, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, write all the songs. That's fascinating to me that you guys have kind of gone along the same thing. You ended up as a 4-piece though. Didn't you have a percussionist at one time?
No, but we had a guy join us on this last show at the stateroom for our after party. That it was our second year doing it for the Kilby Block Party after party, and our drummer Mike Bailey recommended this gentleman Lynn Brown to come out. And
that was the
shout out Lynn.
Yeah, and he showed up with timpani drums because one of the songs I picked was "Live and Let Die," and then this guy literally was like, "Oh, I have those drums."
He was like, "I have timpani," and it was like amazing. And it was when we were setting up and sound checking, I was talking to Jacob at the stateroom who was running sound for us that night, and I was like, "Hey, Jacob, you ever had timpani on the stage at the stateroom?" And he was like, "Nope." I was like, "Yes."
Yeah, we had a horn section that night, which was just so much fun. My first instrument, saxophone, so I'm an orc dork at heart, and I just, you know, I used to play in marching band and went to Valley Forge and did all that stuff, and you know, so when those guys are there, I just love their energy and the way that horn players are just different. And shout out to them because they're the best musicians in the room. They know what they're doing. They show up prepared. They hit it, and it's just really cool having just people that are. It's like no ego, you know. It's just all music. I love it.
So too, to follow up on kind of what Billy was saying about presenting Loom and not playing certain venues over others, you know, for an improvisational group, especially a rock based one, it's there are some places where it's just not a great setting to present our music. So I've told this story a million times, but now you're going to get it because you have not heard it. We played up at this, we played up at Powder Mountain up north of Salt Lake, and they have a great rowdy bar there called the Powder Keg. And we honestly love the energy of that place. Playing there is always.
Do they have a barricade? Do they have a barricade?
No, they don't. Yeah, there's been some almost like close calls on losing teeth.
People smashing the microphone.
Yeah. But we have this video from like the first time we played there, maybe the second time, and we're diving off the cliff into this jam. I mean, it is just entirely dissolving, and it's like, where are we going next? And then they have a food counter, and the guy hops on the microphone and goes, "Karen, your fries are ready." And like the most like delicate part of the jam, we're like, it's just not the best setting, to sell people on us, like. Yeah, so it was so good.
Like channeling God, and someone's like, "Your ramen, Steve. Steve's ramen is ready."
You need to call your next album, Karen. Your fries are ready.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. We don't want to manifest that anymore.
I always joke when bands talk about, you're playing and there's hardly anybody there, and you hear glasses clinking in the back.
Yeah.
It's a tough road to go.
I've been saying, it's like the thing that we're striving for and aiming up and lining up right now is getting on the road and starting to play in more of like a radius. We're in a very large part of the country out here where things are very spread out. So it's not like you could just get in the van and drive to Philly and then, drive to DC and whatever. And,
6 hours, you can go from Boston to Philly, and hit 4 major markets in 4 days,
Exactly. So we're going to be, we're paying our dues still. We're very new. So, we're going to be doing a lot more of those. And, we're happy to do it. I just, I'm looking forward to just playing a lot more.
And we've always said, it's like, Billy's like, when we get out on the road, I'll play whatever room. I'll play the worst room in that town if it's us going to that town for the first time. It's more like in Salt Lake, where we're trying to build this dedicated fan base in a city that has a great music scene. I love the music scene here. But as far as venues that we would really like to play to present the Loom thing, there aren't that many to just play like over and over again. It's like there's longer gaps.
How does it work in Salt Lake City? Can you guys like drink? I mean, what's the deal out there? I've heard that like you can't drink alcohol and things like that. I might have been lied to.
Are you in Philly? Where are you at?
I'm in Baltimore.
Okay, I heard the slight accent.
People always ask me that, and I'm like, nah, I'm a Baltimore guy. I grew up like 10 miles from where The Wire was filmed.
Okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. So it's everyone, because I asked everyone from the East Coast. I grew up in the Scranton area, and so I spent a lot of time down in Philly and stuff. And but everyone always asks that, and my brother-in-law even, he's like, What do you have to have like an ID, like a card to get into a private club there? He was like, I was there a couple, I forget when it was, but I guess you used to have a VIP.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Access card.
No longer.
However, the laws are still, like you can't
Draconian?
look at. I don't think you can look at a beer and touch a vehicle.
There's a few things. So one, you're going to get ID'd everywhere you go. Right. It doesn't matter. Like you look 80, you're getting ID'd, right? If you don't have your ID, you are not getting in. There's no like showing a picture. There's no like proving it any other way.
Look at me. Yeah. I'm over 18.
You're like, that man could be wearing a mask. He could be in disguise.
Then
Mission Impossible.
Yeah, totally.
The legal limit for driving is 0.05, not 0.08. Ooh. So it's like you can get, it's bad. And then if you want
old fashioned and you're over. One old fashioned, you're not getting
exactly. And if you want anything above 5% alcohol, you have to go to a state-run liquor store.
Right. Well, that's Pennsylvania's like that, right? Pennsylvania has the state-run liquor stores, and then you can buy beer at a gas station or a grocery store kind of thing, right? Yeah. Grocery store.
And the thing is,
food or something like that.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, so I say this about Salt Lake in general, is that there's this amazing counterculture here because it's an equal and opposite reaction to the Mormon church. Like, they say don't drink and don't drink coffee. So there's a ton of great bars and a ton of great coffee shops, like people were like, fuck you, we're going to do what we want. And there's great places to drink and
Public
coffee.
Try
and
the Nitro Cold Brew when you come to Salt Lake.
Shout out Public.
At Public Coffee.
Right.
The Nitro Cold Brew is awesome. I mean, I love it. I think it's good.
But no, there's a big scene here too of like burners. The burner scene out here is quite big. People love to go throw renegade parties in the desert. I mean, the geography of Utah is amazing. And really, I'd say the main culture here of young people, like what it's turning to, is recreation. You know, climbing, skiing, biking. Like that's the main culture, and those people love beer and they love to party.
Yeah.
So like, it's we don't really notice it. I would say it's like
No,
if you go to try to go get liquor on a Sunday, you're not gonna be able to. And have your ID on you.
I feel like it's just like annoying enough when you're, because I cook a lot and I'm always like, oh, I don't have wine to make the sauce, and it's like, can we go? No, we can't go get wine right now. You know, like
Connecticut used to be, parts of Connecticut used to be no alcohol on Sundays unless you went to a winery and you were at a winery, you could buy wine. So that was like the loophole. Everybody drank wine on Sunday.
Yeah. I think also too what Vince was saying, like how it just kind of translates to the scene and I guess to us and the band and what we're doing, is when I first got out here, I was really just impressed by the people that did come out, and Vince's friends and his fan base and friends that come out to shows are very much into the jam scene. I mean, Vince literally just walked in the door from seeing Goose in Idaho.
Yeah, I went to Goose in Boise last night.
Man, that
dude. It was ridiculous. Total time portal. I walked in, Billy was like, how was it? I'm like, dude, top 3 Goose show I've seen. That was like my 30th
about
or something.
18 minutes in, Rick hit that staccato kind of riff and they just rode it for another 18 minutes. It was pretty hot.
Awesome.
Yeah, Cotter is very good for them. Thank you, Cotter.
As a 4-piece, they definitely, it's like Jeff was a blip. We went back to pre-COVID, and now as a 4-piece, it just gives them much more freedom than having to have a percussionist.
Yeah, there's more space when you can have stuff like that. That's even in the early stages. When I got out here, I was like, I'm probably gonna fly back home if you guys want to have 5 people in the band, because there's just too much. It's too much information, you know. I mean, and I don't mean it in a bad way or whatever. And kudos to people that do have 5 people and can do all that. But
when we did dancing in the street, that was fun. Doing dead stuff with the 2 guitars makes sense.
And it's probably just also a me thing, and like the way that I play and my musical heroes and whatever. I'm kind of throwing out a lot of information.
Billy plays like 3 guitars, so it's like we're fine.
I do try to find my space, but I'm also always looking for that space to sink into the jam to allow more language to develop and have like this conversation going on. And you got to be a really good band and really know your role in the band and honor the role. And that takes a lot of musical development and maturity and time with the instrument. And I think kind of where we all where the guys were in the band at that point in time, I think it was just kind of like everyone's really anxious,
super raw,
to say something rather than listening first and then speaking, which it's just easier to do with 4 people. And
better pay splits.
Yeah,
right. I'm a huge fan of the trio. You get 3 guys up there, and but then a lot falls on a guitar player or the organ player, whoever the main instrument is there, maybe more so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me ask you.
To do that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Right. Have you been in the studio
for with Loom?
Yeah,
no, we have not yet.
We have not yet.
We need to,
for a number of reasons. The one studio song that we have out was actually recorded in this Carlos. This used to be Carlos's house. Now it is Billy and Stu's, our manager, and Billy's wife. And there's a back room that Carlos had set up as kind of a studio, and we recorded a very simple version of that song, "What I Mean," in one day. But we haven't done studio time for a number of reasons.
Yeah, the stuff we've been kind of releasing too, also outside of that, money, time, finances, finding the right people, producers, engineers, studio time, is that we figured we'd just kind of start writing new songs and putting them out and playing them live and fine-tuning them anyway. So when we do get to the studio, even deciding, us being new, like how we would like to record it or present it or capture the kind of maybe more of a live energy in the studio and stuff like that. And I think that's where we're at right now. I think we're still also kind of, working to just find ourselves musically as well, and how we do want to present and approach those new ideas, both lyrically, melodically, and on our instruments.
I always call the recording the artifact. It's where the song existed in that moment, and it is always going to exist there. Whereas the live version, you're allowed to let it breathe, grow, change. I mean, how many bands have you seen over the years? The song changes over time. Let me ask you this: so how does it start? Somebody walk in with a guitar riff? Do you like have notes? Do people walk in with full songs and say, "Let's work this up, guys"?
I'm generally more the full song guy, just because I sit down and I'm like, no, that's not it. That's not it. And I'm like, okay, this is it. And it's going to need this. And like the last one we did that I wrote was called Closer Than You Think. And that like took shape with the riff sitting on the couch in this room and playing
like a year ago.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I think this is like totally a riff that I did the other day. And I played it for Vince. And he's like, oh, that's definitely a riff. And I said, I know, right? It's like, it's the thing. It's like,
it sounds like something you've heard before, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
It's a thing from the guy. It's a thing from the guy.
It's like, okay, what is this? What does the song need? Well, what does every good song need? It's going to need a great guitar riff, right? So let me write a great guitar riff. I sat down with that, and then he's like, oh, and then he went home, and I think I sat up for like 6 more hours that night and just recorded a bunch of like takes with it, and then I sent it to him, I think that night at like 4 a.m. or something. I was like, no, this is it now, and then came with them with the chords and the pre-chorus and the lyrics and everything. And then Vince has had his own stuff with his songs that he's basically mainly when I got here that you had that were complete.
Yep. Which we rearranged in some ways.
Oh,
I think
totally, yeah.
Billy's the guy. Billy's got a great ear for let's it's funny because my DJ as well. My DJ name is My Guy. So but Billy's got a great ear for our song Mama Say. I had an intro where I was doing 4 bars of it originally, and Billy's like, let's make that 2. And then we started doing it as 2, and it was like, oh yeah, that's nice, just like cleaner, just like get right into it. I think Billy has a great way of taking what I've written and adding like just more clean, hard-hitting arrangements that I think help make the songs just more punchy. And then we've got
Vince has great vocal melodies too that he loves to do.
Thank you, sir.
That adds a lot to what we do. And I think probably just from we have like this next. Well, we had the song that I wrote, and Carlos kind of like hijacked it a little bit and started writing all these lyrics to it. And I had all the music in it. And so at the point in time, I was like, that's great. That's fine. Just, great. Write stuff. Do whatever. Sing it. Sure. I don't care. We need material. And then I kind of just like gave it up. And now I'm like taking it back. And I completely changed the name. Carlos called it Easy Math. And it was about, I don't even really know what it was about.
Yeah. Not sure. Carlos had a sort of, how would I describe abstract lyrical style.
Thompson,
he is our Hunter S. Thompson. Yes.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that though.
And stuff.
Or like Finnegan's Wake too, just like words for words' sakes. And I love that. Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's like I love that stuff of like it just sounds this way, so that's what we're gonna sing it. And what does it even mean?
But I think Vince's songs kind of tend to be a little bit more, at least for now anyway, from what we have. And like this most recent song, I recalled it The Mirror, because it's basically about music's whole thing being this mirror it is the great revealer. It is the great truth teller. Everything that you are wanting to do with what it is you should be doing, the music and where you're at is going to tell you that. And if you don't listen to it, that's completely, totally on you. So the more honest you are with yourself, the more you're going to get this reflection back, and the more you share that with people. And it's really a beautiful thing. It requires honesty, and also is defined by the honesty itself within it. And that's basically what the whole song is about.
Have you been hanging out with Reed Mathis? He said something totally that to me like a month ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
there you go.
He said that the true art is when you're embarrassed. And I was like, I love that, dude. I was like, that's
that's great. I find that also, I don't know about for you, but I used to be a lot like that. We're like, oh, I can't write about this thing, and I can't say this. And I'm kind of just at this point now where it's like the way that I even play and approach the guitar is basically like, please get the hell out of my way. And like, I need to say this. And I'm basically just at that point and that age in my life where I've kind of actually not said the thing that I've wanted to say for the last 10 years. And everyone here is already thinking it, but doesn't want to say it. I'm usually kind of the guy that's like, well, yeah, but do you not see this? It's kind of, so I'm like that in rehearsals a lot too.
and it's funny, I actually have been struggling with this in one way. So a lot of the songs that I tend to write are when I'm depressed and sad. I grab my guitar and my notebook.
It's so much
But
easier. It's impossible to write a happy song without it sounding sappy. It's so much easier to write.
And that's the thing is, I tend to write happy sounding songs that if you listen to the lyrics, it's like, oh, this dude, like,
that's messed
the
up.
opening of Mama. Well, the opening of Mama Say is "Here we go, not to be alone." I'm like, I'm writing this so that I can like connect with people because I'm here alone. And so that's how my songs take shape. But I've been thinking about this recently of Billy saying like, I want to say this. I have two very amazing, loving parents who are super supportive and focused on this, and I'm like, I gotta write some shit about like sex, drugs, and rock and roll because like it's kind of a lot of my life, but I gotta be okay with my parents hearing the song and being like, Vince, do you say this? Did you mean this? I'm like, Mom, it's a song. Don't worry about it.
Well,
but also,
I keep saying
like,
we need more songs with we need more songs about rock and roll with rock and roll in the title.
That's a fair statement.
We can do that.
I agree with that, dude.
We can do that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about set list. You guys do we're changing it up every night thing. That is the jam band ethos. What's your song pool look like?
The pool?
How many songs do you have to pull from?
Oh, God, I don't even know right now.
Like it's still mostly
65
covers
or something.
Yeah, 65-ish. I was gonna say 60.
So you could get a good 3 nights in, probably, maybe 4 nights.
We'd love to if we could. I think, and we like to, we definitely do a lot of one-offs too. We'll learn songs for
We've done that
because we've played a lot of special dates. Actually, we play we played like a couple of eclipses and the solstice and like President's Day and like New Year's and all these Halloween. Right? We've been fortunate to do that, and so we'll learn stuff just for that gig, and some of it might make it into others, right? But it's like we did this. This is one of my favorite set lists we've ever done. So I'm gonna, if you'll indulge me, over President's Weekend, we came up with this idea of sort of a meta commentary on the state of America and its politics, and we did "Hail to the Chief," but on kazoos to open the show. And then we went into the Imperial March, the Star Wars, bum, 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 bum. And then did U.S. Blues by the Grateful Dead. And then Freedom by George Michael. And we were like, that's what Loom thinks about everything right now.
There you go. I love it.
Yeah, I love doing stuff like that. Maybe there's 5 people in the room that are paying attention. They're like, oh, yeah. But those are our people. That's what we're playing for. So. Yeah.
You did a fantastic job with Freedom, the one from the side of the mountain there. What made that song? Was it because of that set that the song appeared, or were you doing it before? It had been kicking around, or?
We love doing Freedom.
Yeah, I think we all just kind of, so Carlos, when he was around, he is 10 years older than me. I'm 10 years older than Vince, and Vince is about 10 years older or so than Will, the keyboard player now. So we each kind of have like this whole like way in which music was perceived throughout the years of our lives. But mainly there's a lot of really great cuts and, top 20 contemporary hits in the 80s, 70s and 80s that we love. And, you can chalk them up for guilty pleasures if you want, but really those songs and the way that those albums were recorded and the sounds that are on them, we also do In Excess, Need You Tonight. We do, which has just, the synth sounds, and those are amazing. We did.
When I was a senior in high school, In Excess was the biggest band on the planet. And if they had released another album after Kick, I'm sure they would have been bigger than U2 ever was. Mm-hmm. But they crapped out. Whatever happened after that old tour, they just couldn't repeat it.
So it's hard to get along.
So I think we just gravitate kind of towards these songs that have really good textural kind of stuff happening on, and really nice melodies and stuff that we know people don't see other bands do, but also really love and enjoy deeply. And they hear them in the background of their lives continuously, but they never really go out and see a band like absolutely decimate it. I mean, we played that Freedom is, I don't know, like 20 minutes long or something. And I was like,
how do you approach that though? You know what the song is 5 minutes or whatever. I had the cassette single.
Self-indulgence.
So back in the day. So did you go into it saying, yes, we know we want to open this up as far as it go, or does it happen just in the moment?
So from my perspective, we definitely have like with Freedom, that has that breakdown, looks like the road to heaven. And when we initially started playing it, we were like, oh, let's funk this out. This is a good spot to have a little funk section. Originally just started as kind of like a bass drums, then it's keyboard solo thing. And then, I mean, that version was, so first of all, we love playing at Snowbird. The Little Cottonwood Mountains are just
it looks so cool.
There's something that goes on there.
Crash if you come out here, it's beautiful.
Yeah, there's something that goes on there specifically that it happens, and that version was certainly the faucet ever opened on that middle jam. Yeah. It was like, I remember like we had the music video. I'm like cheesing and Billy's like, rock. It's just like that was one of those things where we knew we were going to jam that. We did not know that was going to happen. And it came together so beautifully.
Like how Humphreys McGee puts on their set list J.O. in parentheses next to certain songs. So they know they're going to jam that one out. They don't necessarily know where it's going to go, but the whole band knows this one is the one that we're taking out tonight. I think three of the guys in that band write the set list: Joel, Brendan, and Jake. So you're getting a different flavor each night. Who writes the set list for you guys?
Generally, I do, and for a few reasons that I think it's easy to do that is that Vince is very much like, he and I are kind of a hive mind mentality in a lot of ways. So Vince doesn't even really ever even ask me what's the set tomorrow or whatever, because he just knows that I'm really good at reading the room and just being like, that song is not going to hit right now. There's no way that we should play this, just from playing like all the time and playing bars and just looking at people and talk, like I did so many solo acoustic guitar shows where I'm literally just standing there with the guitar, looking at people and talking to people. It's like you kind of get like this whole thing. So he, but then the other guys, Will or Mike, will be like, so what's the set list? What's the set list? What's the set list? And I'm like, learn all the songs, know them all, just know them all. Who gives a shit? Like, we're going to get up there. We're going to have a general idea. Like, what time is the show taking place? What day of the week is it? How many times did we play there this week, this month?
What did we do last time we were there?
For someone else that's a different kind of band or a similar band to the songs that we normally have. So those are things that go into it. But generally, like, for your question, like, how'd you know you're going to do that Freedom or whatever? From rehearsing it for sure, playing it, coming up with those ideas like Vince said, and then like what Humphreys does, it's kind of hard to, although if you do play a lot, you will eventually do this where you're like, hey, we know this song usually goes off in this direction. And we'll start to just kind of crush it and kill it and know it's going to be that for what it's going to be for the night. And that allows you then to open up to other songs and ways in which you approach the next tune or what have you. But eventually you're going to want to even change that. It's like, for how long and how many years did Fish play Chalk Dust Torture kind of in like this ripping type 1 jam? And then not only until like the last, 10 years or 15 years or something, they're like, what if we just not do that and like make it something completely, totally different? So those are all just like kind of a cycle of the way in which I think jams as a whole are approached by jam bands. And, even jazz bands will do that. It's like, hey, take the head to Watermelon Man. And it's like, okay, and then we're going to do it this way. And then, the next night they're like, yeah, let's not do that. That was terrible.
Well, and another thing too is that Billy and I often think about, so I'd say, yeah, Billy writes the set list and then is kind of like, what do you think about this? Gets like some feedback from me. And we think a lot about keys of songs. It's like if the listener hears 6 songs in the key of E in a row, they don't know why, but they're going to walk away. Like they're going to go be like, let's go get a beer and not be here. So we think about that. We think about ways that we can take a jam, modulate, go into another key, get to a song. And then energy being definitely what we think about for like bookends, right? Of like set opener, set closer. We're usually thinking about ripping people's faces off. So
right.
Yes.
Do you guys practice transitions and jamming? Like, do you, like Fish used to do around the horn, where they play one thing and somebody change a note and then they'd all play that? And
I don't think we have done that really
not as
yet.
much as we should.
No, I don't think we've done that as a specific, like,
exercise,
detailed example exercise. But I think what happens is, for example, there's just kind of basic, like, modal theory and like key changes, just going from a 1, 4, or 5 or something, right? And so you can kind of gauge and judge when that's going to happen, and so much of that is determined by literally this guy right here. Like, we can be in one key playing an A, and if he like holds a D for like literally one extra eighth note, he's implying a whole different key, and it's
you can't go back,
and it's you can't
go back
unless you kind of like, and if I like grab onto that D note and hold that too long, forget it, we're like moving. So there's kind of like things like that.
Billy, real quick, Billy's very good though. I'll hit the D for just like too long, and he'll be like, "Okay, I'm gonna suggest this D and rip it back to A minor," and I'm like, "Oh, thank you, Billy." Like, God, I didn't mean to hit the D for that long, Like,
yeah, so there's cool things that you can kind of do and approach, and I think, like, I forget what show it was, but I wrote out that was, I think, one show I like actually was like
Winterfest.
Okay, yeah, I was like, I'm gonna actually write all this whole thing out, and I want to make this show flow as best as I can. And so they were all in completely different, non-related keys that you couldn't really just jump to. And so just by using like some basic theory and circle of fifth stuffs and going major, minor, and I moved around to different chordal changes to then imply other key changes, and people do that a lot all the time.
And it was sick.
That is stuff that you do have to practice, because you're implying really kind of like things that aren't instinctual in a way. If you aren't there and talk about, that's why people have sheet music, but if you do them as a group and you practice them, you can start to hear stuff, and you're like, do you remember you went to that minor too? It's like, yeah, we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna go on, and when you do that, there's these ideas that start to kind of come out, because something that I explain to the guys is like, hey, when I'm improvising, sometimes I'll literally just be thinking about a Navajo painting, and it makes me play stuff that sounds like that, or I'll think about like a Ken Burns documentary,
Dune too,
like whatever. And so you start kind of like finding ideas that fit into those chord changes and key changes that evoke certain emotional states and ideas and pictures in your mind. And if you think like that, as well as practicing, you're generally more inclined to allow yourself to access that with you, because so much of music is already ingrained in us. Things that we've heard throughout years, the movies that we watch, the records that we listen to, our favorite moments in time and melodies are all kind of capture this. Vince has a really great musical instinct when it comes to that. So when we're jamming, we do like really well together. So that's been really fun.
And I think, that Snowbird show specifically. So this was this Winterfest show we did earlier in April, and Billy had this idea to modulate from, I think we were doing I Know You Rider, and we wanted to go into Everyone's a Winner. And when Billy first like wrote it up, I was like, that's not going to work. Like, that was my initial reaction. I was like, that makes no sense, Billy.
Like, yeah, but listen to this.
No, and then we rehearsed it, and it was like, oh, this is gonna work. Like, this is so. It had just this. It was just, I was highlighting that it was when that has happened. It's actually been pretty sick, and I think we both tend to err on the side of like, I'd rather not have a roadmap. Like there can be set points, of course, but like we want to find out what happens in that moment and in that jam. And then occasionally when there is a roadmap, I'm like, this is pretty sick too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've always found it fascinating that for years and years, Matt Bush, who was Bob Weir's manager, wrote the Dead and Company set list from 15 to 23. They were not written by anybody in the band. Matt Bush, the manager, Bob Weir's manager, wrote them. And I felt like he had his pulse better on what people wanted than what we've gotten from the last Sphere shows from them when John Mayer's writing the set list. Because Brown Eyed Women doesn't belong after Space. I'm sorry. It just
Right.
It just does not.
Yeah. It's yeah.
Yeah, I think
That's weird.
Billy and I were talking about this the other day of just because you want everyone to feel respected and heard when they have set list ideas, right? You like, and then you can always practice like explaining why you don't think that's a good idea, right? But there was a point in time where I forget what year it was. Mike Gordon talks about this in an interview. He's like, at some point, Trey just started, like, we decided that Trey writes the set list, and it stopped becoming a discussion. It was just like, Trey, what are we playing that night? And that's like, it's basically that now with Billy.
It's got to be so easy. That's so easy, right?
And it's I mean, it's
doing the set list?
Yeah, like somebody says to you, "Here's what you're playing tonight," and you're like, "Cool."
Right, take it out of my hands, like, and that's the nice part is like we have a little bit of back and forth, and sometimes like we'll have.
Well, he had to ask the band. He did write it up, and sometimes they'd be like, "We can't get from that song to that song," or something like you were saying. They're like, "That's not going to happen," so let's move that. But yeah, that's fascinating to me. It's
there's really cool ways to approach that. Sorry about this noise here. There are two things with that. Always try to keep it simple, and then also like the road to hell being paved with good intentions, where you maybe want to do something different, and you're trying to get from point A to point B. And sometimes it just doesn't work, and practicing that's one thing, but what's really cool, I think, about what jazz musicians and jam bands do is they're just the more that you get into doing stuff like that, the better your vocabulary becomes. So, look, I'm not a jazz guitar player. You know what I mean? There are people out there that are they're like
nailed that Kid Charlemagne solo though. Ayo.
You did the Eleanor Rigby thing, and the first thing I thought of with you doing Eleanor Rigby was Stanley Jordan, and you're a fan of working the tapping on the guitar, which Stanley Jordan, I interviewed him once and I almost got him to go off on Jazz People because people spooked on him when he started. And I mean, he's fantastic. And I'm trying to get him back on and just go straight. Let's send Branford to hell.
Look, there's a lot of purity or purists in that whole scene and stuff like that. And but those guys, I mean, they're all of them are monsters, like we did the Steely Dan tune, and
Charlemagne, that's probably the best song. Larry Carlton's guitar solo. Larry, you invoked the spirit of Larry Carlton. Huh?
Yeah, man, he's in. I did so much homework watching like any video I could find, and found all these Rick Beato interviews and stuff, and then even Rick was like, "Oh, he's like." This is the best recorded studio album guitar solo ever, and like broke it all down and explained why, and then played it. And then, so,
it only took a kilo of
I sat down for 2 weeks playing that thing. I wish I could learn it faster, but
yeah, that Chuck Rainey's bass line, man, like Billy's like, okay, we're gonna do Kid Charlemagne, Vince, and like you got this. And I just never listened to Kid Charlemagne before and been like, oh, the bass line, like it's got so much else going on. And then started listening.
It's got a great lyric. Yeah.
Well, and then started listening to it, and I was like, oh my God, like this guy has 7 fingers on either hand, and it's so syncopated, it's so bopping, and like it really, I was like, this makes the song, like it is such an integral part of the song. And the first 16 bars took me probably like 16 hours to learn.
Wow.
And then it was like my brain could actually conceptualize like what was happening. But first learning it, it's like, Billy has great mantras around music. The song is the greatest teacher. And like, sitting down with it and just like rewinding it and just being like, what was that tiny little riff? Like, how did he hit that note? How did he hit that note? How did he hit that note? So many times.
Very interesting that I went and found everything I could see, and say 30 years ago, you didn't watch, you listened to the record. And I always feel like there's something to be said for not being able to see what they're doing, not having people try to explain it. And you're just listening to it and you're like, yeah, it's close. Might not be exactly it.
Yeah, it's funny.
That's how you really learn. I feel like there's a whole nother level of learning there because you don't have. It's just these things.
Suzuki violin method or whatever.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, all our heroes. That's how they learned. I'm a big fan of Tommy Emmanuel on acoustic guitar. And he talks about how he learned to play these Chet Atkins tunes, and everyone that he knew, his older brother that he, still tours with and stuff, was like, "Oh, no, that's two guitar players." And he's like, "No, I don't think it is." And he sat down and then became obsessed with Chet Atkins and the way that he plays and doing all that hybrid thumb finger style stuff. And just with, there was no YouTube or anything, but for me anyway, I think probably for you too. There's this
great picture Billy's mom brought it when she came. I can't remember, I saw it or you showed it to me, that his mom took of him standing in his room like with a music stand in front of him, and you can see the little tape deck, and he's holding his guitar, and it's like kids like 14, and that's all he wanted to do was like stand alone in a room like rewinding the tape.
That's the cover of the album, and on the top it says, "Are your fries ready? Your fries are ready, Karen."
You might just have a job. We pay nothing right now, but we're trending up.
Russell Batiste from the Funky Meters, other things in New Orleans, God rest his soul, was playing my boss's wedding. So we had him in the bar all night. We're drinking, getting hammered. We play Fire on the Mountain, and we're like, dude, you guys should really play Fire on the Mountain for Dave tomorrow. He loves that song. The next day, Russell comes up to me, and he's like, dude, I was up all night trying to figure out how that drummer played that. He didn't realize it was Billy and Mickey. He had no concept of the Grateful Dead or anything, and he learned to fucking play the thing.
That's awesome.
And that's a testament too to the belief in yourself. It's definitely early on with the band we struggled with. Like Billy, was really pushing us to learn harder stuff. And we did this after party gig for the Kilby Block Party Festival that's here in Salt Lake City. And Billy was like, no more Simple Dead tunes. Like, we're going to do Rise by Herb Alpert, like we're going to do Sledgehammer by Peter Gabriel, like things that are just like
my orc dork coming out. I was like, we're going to play Spanish Flea by Herb Alpert. No, we did do Spanish Flea. We did Rise. And
right.
But you have to believe, you have to believe you can do it. Basically, if you start out learning a piece of music and you're like, I'm not sure I can do this, you're never going to do it. And that was, I fought with that with the Kid Charlemagne thing for a little bit. I was just like, man,
you came out a champion.
Well, because it's a pleasure to be able to play with this dude and stand next to him on stage. So it's like, I'm like,
he's the guy.
I gotta do my part here. And then when I did finally start getting it, I was texting Billy. I'm like, man, it feels so good to play this song. Like, it's so, I could play that outro forever. And thanks for pushing me to do it, and
it's also like just every person, because you're never done doing any of that stuff when you're playing, no matter at what level you're at. You always are, picking from here and choosing from that, and someone's recording this and you're like, why didn't I think of that? That album sounds incredible. Like, what's he doing there? What? Oh, the way he plays. It's, everyone's just kind of listening to this stuff, and it's, builds excitement, and, you want to dig into more stuff and be like, oh, I never thought of doing that. Like, I would not approach this guitar solo this way at all. And sitting down and dissecting it, or just, Vince on the bass doing it, or even, Mike on drums or whatever. And so just picking these songs, just like we said earlier, that, I know that, like, when I picked that song, I was like, there's people in this scene that love Steely Dan, and there's definitely bands out there, I think maybe in the jam band community, that have done it. I don't know if anything.
I think the only one I saw is Wolfpack did it. Like a long time ago.
And you worked on a yacht.
Yeah, right. And so we, we took that, and I was like, oh, dude, I can't wait to play this outro and jam out this outro, because no one does it, and and it sounds great. So we have that coming out.
And shout out our
I want to hear someone do the Fez.
The Fez.
Oh, yeah.
Off that album, off the same album. Never going to do it without the Fez on. It's hardly any lyrics to remember.
Oh man. Yeah, dude, his stuff is crazy too.
That's my favorite Steely Dan album, The Royal Scam. Yeah. That's my one. Everyone loves Aja. I felt like they went too far jazzy with it. That The Royal Scam was the ultimate rock album,
Okay. I like that. And shout out our very good buddy Fritz, homie in Salt Lake scene, big fish jam guy, loves Steely Dan, loves. And we started the song at the show, and he just went bananas. It was just we were just playing to
Made it all the
him, and like,
better.
I
and
didn't even know it was there, and I just see this like
it
this
just
beam
bolts to the
literally
front.
like I just see this thing come through the crowd, and he's like, yeah, oh my god. I was like, dude, yes.
And so the best part is at the end of the song, we end the song, and he's like right up against the stage, and he turns around to the crowd yelling at all our friends. Like, he knows all these people. He goes, "Do you know how technical that song is?" Like, Fritz, I love you, dude. Oh my god.
That's fantastic. So what's next? I guess people have to be in Salt Lake City kind of to catch you at this moment.
For now, yeah.
For the next couple, but my iPhone password is Loom at MSG, so that's the long-term goal.
Yeah, we've kind of so this last show we did. There's if anyone it produces shows can tell you, there's just so much work that went into that last show that we did for the Loom after party, and
lost money.
Yeah, we chose it on a Thursday night, which was the first night of the Kilby Block party. Last year we had Friday night and had a great turnout. So we're like, oh, this will be a safe bet.
And it was Thursday or Sunday.
Yeah,
that was our choices. So,
and we didn't start until 10:40 or something like that. But anyway, so after that, we're now going to be writing more, and we're going to be recording. And then while that was going on, we were talking about actually getting out to the East Coast in November. We're still talking about that. We'll definitely be sure to let you know. And be
well, hopefully the 8x10 will still be there and you can play there. That's a good little club. I saw Fish there in '89. Somebody called me up and was like, "There's an Allman Brothers cover band playing tonight at the 8x10. We should go." And we go down there and they're like, "Oh, it's Fish. It's $7." And we were like, "I don't know, man. I don't know about this." But we paid the $7 and went in. There were like 40 of us there. And
oh wow.
They did Undone by the Guess Who is what stood out to me, because I was a big Guess Who fan. I was like, that's cool as shit. They did Undone.
That's funny.
Well, so too, it's an interesting thing about Fish. So this is kind of backing up a little and moving forward a little of writing new material and playing songs. I think that Billy helped instill this in me early on, because I personally just love writing songs for myself. It's like I'll write songs that I'm like, this is never going to be a Loom song. I just liked writing it. It was great. But so early on, I was definitely really itching. And then having Billy in the band, I'm like, dude, like write like a bunch of amazing music, please, that we'll play. And Billy's like, yeah,
where's my fluff head?
Well, and Billy kind of like, as a good teacher does, he's like, patience, like Padawan, like, let's learn great music as a teacher for how we'll write songs, because it's like it's like, Vince, you can't play the bass for anything yet. Like when I started, I was picking up the bass for the band. I mean, I still am like very novice bassist, I would say, and learning great cover songs, learning great songs, it gives you the tools that you need to write better music. It's like, why would we sacrifice the brand of Loom, if you think about it that way?
Is it dangerous playing covers?
So it's, like, I think that the people who get it because we give a different show every time. We try to play, a mix of things. But like, that's what I was about to say, is like Fish for many years did tons of covers until then they worked up a big body of material. And you think about that, they were playing for 10 years before 93 was a thing. So, and then Dogs in a Pile was literally a Grateful Dead cover band for many years before they started writing their own originals. And I think that anyone who's like, oh, that band's, just a cover band.
Another. Have you ever heard of Living Earth? Band called Living Earth. They were a Grateful Dead cover band out of Philly, Pennsylvania area back in the 80s and 90s. And they released their album, and everybody was so psyched, and it sounded like 38 Special. And they were like a 70s sounding Grateful Dead cover band, and it basically killed them because they wanted to play the new songs, and everybody was expecting the cover band thing,
Right.
Yeah. This is a kind of where I was going with this, is that we want always like a new song. Granted, it's not always going to be like the highest high, but like we want a new song that we present to the crowd to have them be like, oh, this is sick. Like, this is super, super sick. And then make them want to hear that. Right.
Yeah. I think also too, just what Vince is saying is it dangerous? No, because if you look at the success of the band, so we're to go first full circle with where we're going next is we're actually opening for Dogs in a Pile on August 10th at Snow Basin. And so that's something we're really looking forward to. And so, no, I don't think it's a dangerous thing. I think it's really about how you treat each song. If you're not searching for something that sounds like you within it, or maybe opening it up, jamming it in a certain way, or doing something that is somewhat enjoyable for yourself as a musician and for improvising and for the audience, then I think, yeah, it's definitely that. And especially if the other songs that you have in your set that you are writing don't sound like you. And I think the songs we have are very much sounds like Loom to us.
And they're our audience's favorites.
Yeah. Vince's songs sound like Vince's songs. My songs sound like my songs. And
have you ever heard of a band called Zebra? They had a hit song at one time, something about who's at the door or something like that. And this song was huge in maybe 1986, 87, the whole summer. Everybody was playing it. They were a cover band for 10 years before that. They did this great song. They sounded like the New Zeppelin, and that was it. Maybe the problem isn't being a cover band and switching to originals. It's having a hit. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe you don't want to have a hit song.
It's scary. Success can be scary.
Part of my whole thing, since I even picked up the guitar and have ever just always wanted to do what we're doing right now, and I said this since day one I met this guy, and anyone that's ever asked me, even when I was playing guitar in high school and then later and then playing in bars and stuff, where do you see yourself? And what is it that you really want to do? And it's like, I'm literally doing it right now in front of your face. And I just want to keep doing this more and get better at what I do and play for more people. And I think the construct and the whole thing with improvising and playing as a cohesive unit in a band and making something that is just this like insane, because there's parts when we play and it doesn't happen at every show, and it doesn't happen at every show for every band either. And that's why people keep chasing going to see these kinds of bands, is because they're like, dude, do you remember last week when they did that set and literally a portal opened?
Like last night in Boise.
It's that is literally where I want the band to get to and to keep going towards. So if we have to use other songs along the way that make us better musicians and understand things, to
own them though. Own them. Fish Joint Circus comes to town. You would not know that was a Los Lobos tune if you didn't know it was a Los Lobos tune.
Right.
That's exactly what I was about to say. In the jam band scene, you have this. I mean, anytime someone does a cover, there's some that everyone knows. We love the song. People love the song. They know what it is right away. And then there's some that people don't know about. Like I thought Yamar was a Fish tune forever. Funky Bitch. And then you find out, you go listen to the original, and you're like, man, this is really cool. They covered this. And I think we have, I've had feedback from people after shows being like, I really liked that, set opener. Like, that's a great song of your guys's. And I'm like, that was written by NXS in 1981. Like, they're like, oh, whoa, I'm gonna go check that out.
That song sold 25 million records.
And turning people onto that stuff is one of my favorite parts about it, I think
everything I know about music I learned from Grateful Dead covers, the Grateful Dead did, Oh, Merle Haggard, who's that guy? Let me go check that out,
Bob Dylan too, right? There's so many
people. Yeah, Dylan? Actually, I knew about Dylan a little bit.
I'm sorry, people that cover Bob Dylan songs.
Oh, people, yeah, definitely. Oh my God. That's a cottage industry in and of itself, huh?
Yeah, right. So as long as we're out there and we're playing and we're making it sound like it's something bigger than what it was before, which is, I think we do a pretty damn good job at that.
We do.
And
you need to put whole shows up. You need to get some whole shows up on the YouTube. You got little songs, you got the interview. I want to
working on it.
Yeah, we just started, although we have to upload them and re-upload them. There's a problem with the upload. So we started an archive.org account. So we're going to be doing that. we'll reach back out to you and let you know about where it is, and we'll be posting.
What about
about
Bandcamp? You guys do Bandcamp?
We are going to be exploring Bandcamp as well. I mean, the real thing about that behind the scenes is that we haven't even been a band for 2 years, right? So like we are still very new. We're very proud of what we've been able to do in those 2 years. I think that
you sound more than 2 years in. I will say that.
Thank you so much. And that's another. I was actually talking about this with someone at the Goose show last night, telling them about Loom, and like, oh yeah, I've heard you guys sound great. Like, you know, you guys play shows all the time. Like, he sounds very like you're in the flow. And I was like, we've probably played literally 21 shows total or something. Right. It's like a crazy low number, but we push ourselves really hard and all these things. But behind the scenes, it's like, you know, recordings, getting soundboards. Like, we had to buy our own piece of equipment. Not every venue can do it, right? Sometimes the piece of equipment craps out, or the bass player who's responsible for hitting record fucking doesn't go check on it, and we misses a whole set. Like, and then video, getting the same. Thank goodness for Billy making something happen with 2 condenser mics from that show, because I think I'd be killed in my sleep.
We're releasing bootleg sessions.
Yeah, we got some bootleg tapes.
The last show, so you'll be hearing a bootleg version of Kid Charlemagne.
But getting all the cameras right, having the angles, making sure that they don't run out of storage as they're recording, making sure they have the same frame rate. Like, those are all things that are really difficult to keep under wraps and keep in your head and nail when you're also like, what song am I about to perform? Yeah. You know, like, that is where we want to give ourselves the most, but we're still owner operators of this thing. And having Billy's wife come on as our manager has been immensely helpful. We are lucky enough that we're seeing this community grow around us. We have this young cameraman, Eric Thurman, shout out Eric, who's a great kid, and he's been helping a lot with that. But those are all things that, you know, it's like one camera angle goes bad at a show or something, or one's too grainy. And it's like, we are, I think, very protective of the Loom brand. We'd rather not put something out that looks and sounds bad just to have it out. We want to keep nailing that. And so
but we're junkies. You know, we're junkies out here. We want it. We don't care really. No, honestly, we really don't care. That's why Taper's Choice. You know Taper's Choice? Have you ever heard of Taper's Choice? The drummer from Vampire Weekend. They've allowed Wook Plus, my other YouTube channel, to stream them several times. We recorded actually a whole tour and have dropped the whole thing. And, you know, it's one camera angle. It was an iPhone set up by the soundboard looking at them. And we ran the soundboard into the phone. And boom, there you are.
That's nice. I think
that's a good thing to quite a few people watch it.
So, Bootleg Gizzard too. Bootleg King Gizzard's a whole thing, you know.
So that's actually
think about Grateful Dead tapes. You got the crappiest Grateful Dead tape back in the day. You'd play it over and over again. You didn't care.
That's why we're releasing this show. We're gonna just put it out, and I was like, hey. And I've been advocating for the last 5 shows. I was like, we got to get room mics set up. We got to get room mics. Thank God we finally got room mics set up.
And that's all that recorded.
That's like the only thing we have. And I was like, screw it. We're going to like dump it in GarageBand and try to figure out a way to make it sound somewhat accessible.
You didn't get the Matrix. You didn't get the soundboard part of it. No, is that what we're saying?
It's unfortunate. I mean, all the percussion, the horns, the whole thing.
We got some bits of the soundboard.
What's really cool about it is, you know, I put up a post about it on our Instagram if you want to check it out. And it's just like, you know, hey, do you remember just, you know, smearing the ink on the insert of the cassette tape when you're trading it, and you know how stoked you'd get when someone's like, oh my God, it's here, you know, put it in, you just drive around and listen to it for hours and take this is what I would do. You know, drive around the backcountry roads with my friends, you know, after high school and listen to the new tape, you know. I was like, let's just put it out. So we got it. So that's coming out. You'll be able to hear it. You junkies can
train wrecks and all
freebase the.
I love Bandcamp because I think Bandcamp, most of the money still goes directly to the artist. And even if you put something up for free, you can throw me a buck or whatever. And
I'd love to hear you saying that, because it always blew my mind. And I can go on and on about musicians, but it always blew my mind that not a single musician was like, screw Spotify. Just go to Bandcamp and download it. And if you want to throw me something, I'm at least going to get the dollar.
I could buy my cup of coffee from one person instead of 1,000 downloads.
I think the only person, I think the most
100,000 million, it's like you have to get so many.
I know that. I think it was Michaela Davis that I saw a post about that recently. And I was like, thank you, God. Someone's that's just like, hey, what are you people like, I use Bandcamp. You guys should use Bandcamp as well. And then just push that harder. But for some reason, I don't know how you feel about this, but do you think there's like a disconnect for the consumer culture that's looking at and being like, I don't really know what Bandcamp is. I don't have a...
Here's the thing. When I go to Spotify, when I pay Spotify money, I am buying music from them. What Spotify is selling are subscriptions. Yeah. That's where the disconnect is.
Yeah. Correct. And they're just a hosting platform where you go through the distributor.
Right. They get their $6.99 a month. They don't give a shit if it's AI, if everything on there is created by AI, as long as your check clears. And you're on the other side, like, I want real music, and I'm hearing this crap all the time,
So you, as someone that uses Bandcamp, do you have the Bandcamp app and then listen to new artists and people that you haven't discovered yet on Bandcamp? Or how do you?
What I do is, I somebody mentioned something. The first place I go look is I type in the band's name and put Bandcamp after it, and I go there and I see what they got, and that usually sends me down a rabbit hole because it'll be a record label that I like the name of. So I look at that and I find something. I found this woman named Laura Langendorf, and she has a band called Langendorf United out of Sweden. And I fell in love with this album she did. And she actually did an interview with me from Sweden, and she barely spoke English, but she's like, wow, some dude from America loves what I'm doing.
The world needs more people like you.
Truly. Truly.
Especially from music consumer standpoint, because I mean, it is crazy to me. We talk about this sometimes, it's, if you don't even have to pay anything, and I actually post about it occasionally. I'm like, hey, it doesn't cost you anything just to support your artist friends. Maybe they're a musician, maybe they're a painter, or maybe they just write poetry. Like, I bet they would probably appreciate if you just went to their page and just reshared on your stories something that you enjoyed by them, or just took a screenshot and
check out my friend.
Yeah, and it's just so crazy that in this very quick way to share things that a lot of people just don't for whatever reason. Then they go to Spotify and they're like, let me just pay this billionaire oligarch more money.
Another issue, though, is I read somewhere the end of last year, that there were as many albums released per day in 2024 as were released in the whole year of 1989.
Good God.
So it's
golden age of music.
Yeah. How do you find anything? How do you break through that? That's my God.
Bludgeoning guitar riffs, my friend.
I think that's too why we put out why we have, granted, studio time's expensive, and we're still figuring out our sound as a band, all those things, but also I love the way Fish put it. So you said artifact, but I love the cheeky way Fish put it in Bittersweet Motel.
You guys need a TED tape thing. You need to tape a long jam that you do and release it as a whatever you want to call it.
So plug our Patreon. We'll plug our Patreon right now. Maybe we should upload some of those to Bandcamp or something. But we have some practice jams. We did one on Spotify. It's called our Studio Sessions Jam. Billy plays guitar like the people play synths and LCD sound system. It's so sick. I listen to it all the time. It's dope. But Fish talks about it in Bittersweet Motel. Mike Gordon, he's like, yeah, we just always saw an album as an ad for the band. And the band is the people who perform the music in front of you when you're there. That's what the band sounds like, right? Because let's think about some Beatles albums. I was just saying this earlier today. Magical Mystery Tour. Could you even play that album live? That is a pure studio record. I've heard people play
Blue Jay Way before.
Yeah, but Baby You're a Rich Man, and that stuff of there's 8 sitars in the back, and it's basically that doing a record. Granted, I also
they imported 8 sitars.
Yeah, and just overdubs and all these things, and
that was a TV show, right? That was basically an ad.
Right.
Wasn't that
right.
like attached to a movie
Right.
that was like on the
No, but-
BBC? kind of?
But even like, but that's the thing about the artifact thing. It's like you can carve the Michelangelo's David in a record, right? That's like Steely Dan records. It's like, man, those things are flawless.
Dark
And I
Side.
do love that
Dark
part.
Side is a perfect artifact of where Pink Floyd was at that moment. And when they play it live, they play it note for note. When they did, I guess there is no more playing live.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like we both love records. We talk about that all the time, and I think we want to honor that when we do our first full length album. Of we want it to feel that way, but we're ultimately a live band. We want people in the room with us, and that's how we're gonna make any money doing the thing.
Right, release your first album as a live album.
Well, so we have a full show up on Spotify or live from Snowbird. Give that one a spin. But we got stuff coming. But basically, we like putting out certain live jams because we also, it's a mix of. I don't want to call it arrogance, but we have a pride in what we've been bringing to the Salt Lake music scene. That will when Billy will be mixing a jam that we've done that just is really ripping and. He gets it really sounding good, and we listen to it. We're like, yeah, show me another band in Salt Lake who does that, dude. Do
you ever have a disconnect between when you walk off stage, what you think of a performance, and when you listen back to it?
All the time. For me, all the time. Yeah. Like it can be.
Yeah, but I don't think it's maybe like how you think unless you're really well versed in the Dead and like Jerry interviews, because there's that famous interview where Jerry's talking about how he came to blows with Phil backstage when I forget what they were.
And they used it on Live Dead. They used the Dark Star on Live Dead. That's one of my favorite
and Jerry
stories.
was like, "What the hell was that, man?" And starts pushing him and shit. Imagine Jerry being like that. It's hilarious. And then they didn't do anything with it for so long, and then later they were sitting around listening to it, and Jerry was like, "Oh, this is actually great. We should totally release this."
We nailed it.
I think for me, it's like that. And because I think actually, for example, the last show, there was actually a few moments in there when we were playing or just hearing what was going on. And I was just like, what the hell is happening?
When Billy and I were loading out my big 18-inch bass cabinet, we were like, yo, that was a really bad Loom show. And Billy was like, I know. Yeah. And then our friends were like, that was amazing. So you get that audience feedback, but
you don't trust yourselves. Never trust yourself.
When we think it's good, like when we walk off and we're like, hell yeah, that was great, then it usually it is. But when we think it's not, it's oftentimes better than we think. And there's a jam we put out, the Ghost cover that we did from the Metro Music Hall here.
It's one of the ones on YouTube.
And during that jam, man, I was like, this is doo-doo. I was like, I don't know what I'm playing. I think we sound it was like, and maybe that was stage volume, right? All this stuff. I was like, man, that's not so bad. Go back and listen to it. And I'm like, this is the best jam we've ever done.
Yeah. That's the embarrassment is the true art thing. That's because the embarrassment is the true art.
To me, it was, yeah. And to me, I was in that moment and I was like, oh, we're actually linking in. This is like, we're connecting. And from where I was, it was one of those jams though, where it had to be one. It had to be one. And I was
Billy led the charge.
I was like, this is not going to go this way. And I just kept literally going with very simple melody, like a 2-note. And I was like, I'm going to play this until this fucking band links in, and I'm not going to stop doing it. And you all know how to do this. What are you guys doing?
Lead guitarist, ladies and gentlemen, doing his job.
I'll just literally be like, I'm going to turn on more reverb. Like I'm going to play 2 notes and have a ton of sustain and do something that the audience can still listen
build
to. Build the space.
It works.
And then sure as enough, Vince comes in with his killer descending bass line right back into the head on the one. And the band just links in and it's just boom happening. And then, that, and the intro to that was, I took the same approach with it. I was like, this band needs to loosen up. And so I just literally, I think, played the wah pedal for 7 minutes or something, just like playing one chord.
We'd never done an extended intro on it, and I see Billy never clicks on the wah. Never, dude. I don't think it's even on your board right now. And I see him go to do it, and that was for me in the intro part of that jam. I was like, oh, it's on. Like we're about to funk this out. I was like, hell yeah, Billy with the wah. And then in the most like beautiful melodic like peaking part of it, I'm all in my head like, oh, we sound bad and blah blah. And then, you know, that's such a big thing about performance in general, but with the improv thing, I mean, we talk about all the time. It's like, you know, you prepare in one way, like, you know, you do your practice and you do your, you know, prep in the technical sense and in the musical sense, and then you have to go channel something on a stage.
Throw
and
it all
that's
out
its
the
own
window.
practice. Yeah. And you have to do it with a group of humans on the stage and off the stage, right? It's
In
like
real
we're
time.
working with the crowd, yeah, everybody. And so that's, I mean, one of my favorite parts about playing with this guy is that he's great at using his role as lead guitarist, like band leader, to get me out of it. Like he can hear it happening. He's like, Vince, Vince, I need you right now. Like, come with me. And like, he'll just start raging it. And I'm like, oh, right, Billy. Yeah, we can do this. Like, come back and lock in with him. So, and that's just like, I think that's the thing, you know, I'm always most grateful for is like being able to have those moments on stage where it's like, I like, and Billy has some signature moves. He gets his like shoulder rock going, or he'll look over at me and like make a face. And I love those moments because I'm like, oh, we're about to destroy this crowd. Like, and locking in on those things is the most fun in the world. Yeah.
Gears face. Like, oh, Billy's having fun.
Yeah, Billy's usually very stoic, and not to say he's not having fun, but he's usually very stoic focused. He's, you know, like kind of reading the whole situation. And so when he looks over at me, and like,
you're up there working, right? I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, I know. That's also something too. Thinking about that is, you know, you can't be like that all the time, and performance is a whole thing. There's definitely
got to give him some of that.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. You know, you're on stage in front of people, and people are
throw your foot up on the monitor.
They're like literally like looking up at you on this thing with like lights shining on you, and you know, you have to do something that people are like, well, don't just be standing there, you know, like
please perform.
It's almost like they're kind of expecting that of you, and that's something that we talk
entertain
about
us as the song goes, right?
Yeah, exactly. So getting into that and stuff is really cool and fun when we're sometimes the music takes care of that itself, when it just really becomes this completely like palatable like energy thing that's just like, you know, like, you're like, get out of the way, dude. Like, just like, you're either in this thing or you're not, but like it's about to go to 11 right now, and good luck holding on, you know. Like,
we're gonna be releasing a version of our song Mama Say from Snowbird Winterfest at some point in the next few weeks, hopefully. And it's one of those. It's one of those get out of the ways. Yeah.
Right. We're going to be watching. I'm really interested in where you guys are going to go. I hope you do make it to the East Coast, and I can somehow get to, if you make it to Philly's only an hour and a half. New York, I don't go to New York much. Okay. It's places. I don't know. I know you guys are from New York. But
yeah.
Baltimore, DC. But if you're going to pick between the two, come to Baltimore. Show us some love.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna end this, and I need you guys to hang out with me for a little bit so we can make sure everything uploads. And everybody out there watching, please find All That Jam on social media. Remember to like and subscribe. We're gonna have all the links, if we don't already, down in the description here, so you can find these guys on Bandcamp. Check out their website. You know, maybe turn on some notifications, know when they're going to tour. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. We'll see you soon.